They all were actually shown.
That doesn't mean anything, like we just said.
Did you say hi to the same things or what it means? How you doing, buddy?
Don't ask for whom the bell tolls. Can't tell you what a joy it is to have to make people sit down and shut up. It's nice to have people, and nice to have people talking to one another. Community, that's what we're all about. Talk before church, talk after church. Donuts, sometimes the coffee aids the conversation, so that I managed to score another day-old donut box. So there's really good ones out there tonight. So. And on my way home, I stopped here and put them in the freezer so I wouldn't eat them all at home. So that came out even better. Welcome to First Universalist Church in New Madison on this bright sunny day. Do we have any announcements?
I'm in the process of working with our board members and scheduling a board meeting, so I'll be able to announce next week when our next meeting is.
And Mike and I both got an email from Derek. I can't quite remember. It was
April 10th.
April 10th.
Palm Sunday.
Palm Sunday. We're going to invite El Dorado here, and it's my understanding. As long as
we're going to talk about it at the board meeting,
okay.
But we're assuming that will take place as it has in previous years.
Yes, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm all for that, actually. And so Derek volunteered to preach that Sunday, which will be good. And also, they were talking about a carry-in, so we need to be thinking, what?
We will purchase some food.
I have a giant crock pot thing that will hold like 20 quarts.
And we can purchase some.
And we can make we'll chip in for a stew, and then all we need is a few odds and ends of extra stuff.
We can do the carry-in, we'll invite them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It won't be quite as complicated as theirs.
We will need to set up the kitchen cleaning.
Yes.
Out.
We'll need to.
We'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll need to have a thing set up for have the tables set up and the chairs and the whole kitchen and that. And I'm not sure. Well, it depends on how many people come too.
Well,
and how many.
We'll need some tables upstairs too, if they have some that won't.
Yes.
I was going to say maybe we want to put all the tables up here and eat up here and just bring the food up rather than tell the people who are handicapped that we don't allow them down in our basement. Because I'm past the age when I can carry a wheelchair down the stairs. I used to be able to do that, but I can't do it anymore. So keep that in mind. If you come across a big sale on food items that we can use in bulk, snap that up. Anything else? Okay. If you saw the post I put on Facebook and you look here, we're doing animals again, and we're doing animal intelligence. Are animals sentient? Do they know who they are as animals? Do they recognize themselves as individuals like people do? That's our discussion. And the mouse and the cat is central to that discussion, so I'll reveal that as we get farther back through. Our prelude, How Great Thou Art, that's from Psalm 48, verse 1. How great thou art. Thank you. And I think everybody knows, or I'm assuming everybody agrees how important music is to the worship service. We are not dictators, so if you here or you at home have requests, we will do our best to accommodate them as far as hymns. And Lloyd knows a lot of show tunes, so if you have requests other than that, we'll try to fit that in too. We want to make this part of your life and part of your service and want you to participate in it. And while I'm on that, we're in need of some creativity for our church sign, our street sign. It can't be overtly religious. It can be religiously tinged, but it has to be funny and it has to be short because we don't have very many letters. So if anybody has suggestions on that. Yeah? Okay. Chalice lighting. All Animals Are Relatives by Florence Caplow. We light this chalice in honor of the animal realm. Furred and hoofed, two-legged, four-legged, many-legged. Fanged and clawed, gentle and fierce, wild and tame. May we remember that all animals are our relatives, worthy of our care and our respect. Opening hymn is 281. Our O God, help in ages, our help in ages past. That's from Psalm 90. us all away. We fly, forgotten, as a dream dies at the opening day. It's a little on the dim side, but reality is what we're all about. All right, our children's story. This is about fur and feathers. And I forgot to mention, if I have a tie that fits what I'm talking about, so today I have another cow tie. I've got lots of cow ties. So. The pride and joy of Mama Ostrich were her 2 baby chicks hatched from her very own eggs. One day when Mama Ostrich looked for them but could not find them anywhere, imagine her alarm when she discovered lion tracks around her 2-footed chick's tracks. Fearful but determined to find her babies, she followed the lion tracks. The tracks led into the woods and finally entered the den of Mama Lion. In the opening through the cave, there lay her own 2 dear chicks in the arms of Mama Lion. "What are you doing with my chicks?" cried Mama Ostrich. "Return them to me at once." "What do you mean, your chicks?" Mama Lion growled. "These are my cubs, that's plain to see." "It's not at all plain to see," said Mama Ostrich. "Those are chicks, ostrich chicks, and I'm an ostrich, and you're a lion." "Is that so?" snarled Mama Lion. "Then you won't have any trouble finding other animals who agree with you. I dare you. Find any animal at all that will look me in the eye and tell me that these are not my cubs. Do that, and I'll release them to you." Mama Lion got up and stretched and roared a ferocious roar. Mama Ostrich quickly ran off to each and every animal to tell them that she was assembling a meeting to discuss a terrible injustice. When she arrived at the home of the mongoose and told him her sad story, the mongoose thought and thought. Then he had an idea. He told her to dig a hole under the anthole and make a second exit out of the anthill. This she did, and she told all the animals, including Mama Lion, to gather there at the anthill. When they had all gathered, Mama Ostrich explained to the group how Mama Lion had captured her dear, sweet chicks. The zebras and the antelopes and all the other animals glanced at the chicks, held closely by Mama Lion, and nodding with understanding. But when Mama Ostrich said she needed just one animal to come forward and look Mama Lion in the eye and tell her that she was not the mother of these chicks, each and every animal in the meeting looked down at the ground. One by one, when each animal was asked, each animal whispered that the little ones definitely belonged to Mama Lion, and there was no question about that. When it came to the mongoose's turn, he cried out, "Have you ever seen a mama with fur with babies that had feathers? Think of what you are saying. Mama Lion has fur. These chicks have feathers. They belong to the ostrich." And having said that, Mama Goose jumped down the hole under the anthill and escaped out the other end. At once, Mama Lion jumped after him, but when she did so, the 2 ostrich chicks were freed. Of course, they scrambled immediately right into their mother's open wings. Not knowing about the second exit, Mama Lion paced and paced about the anthill, waiting for the mongoose to come out of the hole by which he had entered. The other animals at the meeting cautiously departed one by one. Mama Lion was left at the entrance to the anthill for a very, very, very long time. The end. Any comments? All right. Our affirmation is "Blessed are all living things" by Maureen Killeran. For the blessings of animal companions, we give thanks. For the beautiful ones whose fur is silky and whose tails are long, whose feathers are brilliant or whose voices are splendid, we give thanks. For the frantic ones, the runts and the hungry who run for a food bowl, or a pat as though this is life's last possible gift, we give thanks. For the obnoxious ones, the heads that butt against us as we're trying to sleep, the bodies that refuse to learn discretion as they make digestive gifts. Anybody have cats? We give thanks. For those who bark and purr and growl and mew, for all who squeak or squawk, snarl or hiss, we give thanks. For the animals unknown to us, those whose niche in life's web is fragile, whose lives are insecure, for all those who care for them and wish them well, we give thanks. Blessed are the animals. Blessed are the creatures who live with us and need our care. Blessed are the mammals and the reptiles and the birds who teach us we are not alone. Blessed are all living things from whom we learn to love. Do you have any joys and concerns? Yeah.
Thoughts and prayers for my daughter's family. They all have COVID, even the 8-month-old.
Even the 8-month-old?
Yeah, our grandson, yeah. And they're better, they're fine. They all had their shots, they all were careful. The 8-month-old got antibodies through breast milk that my daughter, because she got her shots.
Good.
The 5-year-old is fine, he's back to school. We don't know whether Denise and I gave it to them from flying the plane to get there and coming back, or Lachlan, our 5-year-old, got it from kindergarten. We don't know, but they're all okay, but it's kind of scary. And the pediatrician told my daughter that it wasn't for the antibodies that she gave them, that he'd be very, very sick boy.
Yes.
So I mean, they're good. The little guy is a pretty tough little guy. So.
But and that's one of my concerns, and I say this every week, and I'll keep saying it till something changes. The trend is heading down. The number of infections is slowly abating. But this stuff is unbelievably infective. There are people all over Greenville that I work with or that I know. I'm staying like 10 feet away from people and staying outside and wearing a mask whenever I'm around anybody. You have to protect yourself. Tara at New Carlisle, their church, they've got 5 more people infected. One of them is the grandmother that takes care of a family of kids, so they're all afraid those kids are going to end up with it too. And the same facts apply. If you're vaccinated, only a very small percentage of people who are vaccinated go to the hospital, and hardly anybody who's been vaccinated dies. But the hospitals are still packed full of people, and they're dying of this for no reason. One of my concerns is a state trooper from Washington State. You may have heard this. His name is Trooper LeMay. He made a name for himself in November when Governor Inslee in Washington State decreed that all state employees had to be vaccinated. He went on, and sitting in his patrol car, he filmed himself on YouTube and sent a message to Governor Inslee that he could kiss his butt because he was not going to get vaccinated. He died last week of COVID, 50 years old. There is no reason for that. I don't understand that. I will never understand it. I mean, I'm working, and that's what we're doing here, is working through what is human behavior, how does animal behavior affect human behavior, how much are we alike, how much are we different. And in the same vein, how many of you have seen the news? In Canada, there are, I thought it was hundreds, but they say there might even be thousands of trucks heading to Ottawa to complain to the government because the Canadian government has instituted a thing where truck drivers are returning from the United States, not truck drivers in Canada, but if they've been to the United States, they have to be vaccinated. And all these truck drivers are complaining. The same, what has happened is we have infected the poor Canadians. Everybody knows how polite they are, how nice they are. In this parade going down the interstate into Ottawa, there are trucks with Confederate flags, trucks with Nazi flags in Canada, for God's sake. Now, maybe it's Americans have snuck over the border and are polluting their parade. Maybe I would like to believe that's the case. I hate to believe that even Canada is suffering from this. Remember in the past, I've talked about some kind of mass virus that sweeps through civilizations and makes everybody stupid. Evidently, it's happening even in Canada. It's hard to believe. You know how nice the Canadians are. They are such a polite people. And to see a Nazi flag on a pickup truck like you would see in Alabama, or a Confederate flag, I mean, half the French up there don't even know what a Confederate flag is, for God's sake. So, all right, the next picture here is what we're talking about is elephants. Are elephants smart? And I've seen both things on this. You've seen paintings that elephants do. It turns out that it's kind of like the horse that counts. His trainer, this is back in the 30s at the sideshow, his trainer was back there winking, and the horse was well enough trained that he would do whatever the trainer, he would paw as many winks as the trainer gave him. It turns out the manhoots, or the people that train the elephants, are giving them secret signals, so we're not exactly sure how smart the elephants are, but they've got to be pretty smart, even if somebody is telling them how to take a paintbrush and do the Bob Ross thing, make pretty little trees and draw pictures of things. That's still pretty incredible for an elephant. Okay. This is an inquiry into just how evolved we humans are compared to our fellow travelers on this spaceship Earth. As an introduction, let's look at Toxoplasma gondii. Anybody heard of Toxoplasma gondii? You may not have heard of the protozoan, but you've heard of what they've done. They control mice brains to remove the fear of cats. Hence this picture of a mouse sitting on a cat. Not only do these mice not fear cats, they are actually attracted to the smell of cat pee. Think about what you would have to do to a mouse brain to make them attracted to cat pee. And what's the reason for that? You can imagine what effect this has on the lifespan of mice. But to the gondil, it is a boon. Thus, eaten in their mouse Trojan horse style, they complete the life cycle in the cat's gut and are expelled in cat feces, where they infect more mice and people too. Remember the warning to pregnant women not to handle cat litter? Gondil is the reason. It is linked to bipolar actions, schizophrenia, OCD. It's even linked to people being clumsy. This protozoa puts a virus in your brain that affects how your body reacts, how your body is controlled. Permanent brain changes, even after the infection is controlled, makes you wonder about the antisocial behavior of those raised in poverty and spotty cleanliness, doesn't it? We talk about the culture of the inner city where people are not the best behaved as we would hope. Maybe there is a reason for that. In fact, gondil controls the brain function so devastatingly that just hearing about it can make one paranoid about touching cat litter. I'm betting all of you have now been infected by the fear of cat litter. And all you did was hear about it. There's not even a mouse around here. Well, I take that back. We just found out there's mice everywhere. And they've eaten all of our sugar, our artificial sugar, so they don't have very good taste. But Chaz is on the patrol and their mouse traps set out, so, but I would suggest that you wear gloves when you pick them up. All right. Are these tiny protozoa crafty planners, or are they simply acting out nature's dictum, survival of the fittest, the most adapted? Did nature, meaning fate, simply by chance offer them a way to increase reproduction? Or is it natural selection? Did the gondil protozoa who managed to figure this out or managed to stumble into this little trick, they're the ones who reproduced, because when the mice were eaten by the cats, the protozoan in the mice reproduced in the cat's stomach, expelled out, and then went through the life cycle again. And another mouse was patrolling around the cat litter, or another person was cleaning out cat litter and got infected. The gold standard for measuring animal awareness is does anybody know? The mirror test. Animal sentience, that's an awareness of who you are, the self-awareness. The mirror test affects humans at 18 months. And what is the mirror test? Let me show you. We'll be back to the dog. The mirror test is when they put a mark on an animal in front of a mirror. Some animals, and you will see this in my little presentation here, they see whoever's in the mirror as a threat, as another animal, as a stranger. But if that animal looks at that image in the mirror and says, hey, that's me, that is what we call self-awareness. And there are certain animals, birds, and even ants, if you can believe it. What they do is put a dot of paint on the animal where they can see it in the mirror and see what the reaction is.
But some cats, they freak out. So what's up with mirrors? Why do they make some animals go crazy? Hey there, cool cats. Trace here for D-News. Thanks for watching. Mirrors show us what we look like, but they are not perfect. Our right is our left is our right, and if you're trying to manipulate something using a mirror, it can get really confusing really fast. And you can see what happens when you show one to a chimpanzee in this YouTube video captured by French wildlife experts Anne-Marie and Xavier Hubert-Briere. Usually when an animal sees its own reflection, it lashes out aggressively or withdraws in fear because it thinks it's another animal. We know that the chimps don't understand what they're seeing as a reflection because in 1970, Gordon Gallup Jr. created a self-awareness test called the mirror test. If you secretly put a bit of dye or paint onto an animal's face and then it sees a reflection, self-aware animals will go right for the paint, poking it and touching it. Non-self-aware animals won't. It's a simple enough test that's been replicated many, many times. The idea is marking the body is testing the theory of mind, or ability to imagine what others are thinking and feeling separate from yourself. The reason animals don't recognize themselves, say scientists, is because they don't have high levels of self-awareness. We can watch as human babies develop this self-awareness too. Young babies love to look at mirrors, but they have no idea that that other baby isn't a stranger until they're like 15 to 18 months old. And then, if there's a mark on their face, they will touch a finger to it, showing they understand it is their own reflection and not some other baby. Eventually, chimps figure this out too and will begin exploring the mirror, looking at their tongue, flopping their arms around and making odd body motions. Animal psychologist Diana Rice calls this the Groucho stage. But eventually, once they understand what the reflection is, they'll use it to see parts of their body that are normally invisible to them, like their back. Scientists keep testing animals in this way, and so far only bonobos, orangutans, dolphins, orcas, elephants, humans, magpies, and possibly pigeons have passed the mirror test. Interestingly, gorillas don't, leopards don't, fish don't either, and most birds will simply just attack their own reflections. Gibbons and macaques gesture at their face, indicating that they understand something weird is going on, but they don't fully recognize the truth. Dogs spend a little while trying to attack or play with the other dog before giving up and ignoring their reflection altogether, and cats have never passed either. Some scientists say that the passing the mirror test means the animal understands self-awareness. But that's problematic. Non-Western children don't pass the mirror test, even by the age of 6. Studies with Kenyan children show that they can become very uncomfortable when put in front of the mirror, indicating they understand self-awareness. But lead researcher Tanya Broche believes that they don't fully pass because their society values being part of a larger social group rather than individuality. Self-awareness might be a continuum and not a hard and fast line, say animal researchers. So next time you're asking your mirror, mirror, who is the fairest, just make sure that you give animals a fair shake too. It's important to note, not all animals value sight as much as we do. Elephants in the wild will pass the mirror test only about half of the time, even though we believe they're self-aware. This may be because they use sound, touch, and scent for identification over sight. One thing is for sure, however, any videos of animals and babies seeing the reflection, they're just gold. If you wanted to start a website where you could collect all of these mirror test videos, you could go over to
All right. Important point. African children, or in cultures where there is an emphasis on group behavior as opposed to individual behavior, don't pass the mirror test until much later. So we need to keep that in mind. Is this truly a trait of sentience? Because obviously African children are as intelligent and as self-aware as anyone else. So this is like any scientific attempt to understand ourselves or our world around us. Sometimes they're flawed and sometimes they're not as perfect as we want them to be. So we need to keep a little bit of skepticism about the value of the mirror test. And one of the reasons is there are other more benevolent examples of sentient animal behavior. How many pets are viewed as family, and who is training who? We pretend, but who gets the treats, the couch, the bed? Who will sit patiently waiting if someone is asleep on their lap? Possibly intelligence is harder to measure. Does your dog know when you are having a bad day? Did I say that dogs don't pass the mirror test? Put a mark on them and they don't seem to notice. Not smart? Not self-aware? Or is it because dogs are more smell and hearing aware than sight? They have only 2 cones or color receptors to the human 3, so they see a limited palette of colors. Dishwater dull, red is the dirty brown, grass is a kind of a dyed pale green, but the sense of smell that dogs have is they have 50 receptors to our 1, and their hearing is 20 times better than ours. How about birds? Here's an example of raven intelligence. I take the experimenter at his word that he did not teach this solution, but only the individual steps.
Alright, can I stay in here?
Absolutely, you can sit and watch.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
Come on then, send in your mastermind, because it's going to need that.
Alex studies wild birds, which he releases after 3 months of research. This one is nicknamed 007, and it's about to attempt what Alex believes is one of the most complex tests of the animal mind ever constructed. The bird is familiar with the individual objects, but this is the first time he's seen them arranged like this. 8 separate stages that must be completed in a specific order if the puzzle is to be solved. And if the bird succeeds, it'll be a world first. He takes time to have a look and then starts with the short stick. Stage 1. He finds it's too short to reach the food. He then sets off to get the first stone. But he drops it. And another. He seems to be stuck. But then, something seems to click. He deploys the first stone. And then another.
You see what he's doing? Get the stick.
Got it. The 8th and final stage. Success. 8 individual stages of one complex puzzle completed.
Pretty amazing, isn't it? So, I'm sure that they had all those for the bird to experiment with, but they did not, and I'm taking the scientist's word at it, they did not train the bird to follow those steps. They just showed him the individual things. That little bird brain had to figure out that he could drop the stones in to get the long stick out, to get the food out of that little cage, and that the short stick wouldn't work. Even the first step, the short stick tied in a knot on a string. You had to pull the string up to get the short stick out. So when we say animals aren't as intelligent as people, we need to think about what animals, and I mean animals of all kinds, the animals, I have a list here somewhere, the ones that passed, he caught Asian elephants, pigs have been known to pass macaques, magpies, ants, dolphins, orcas, and manta rays. There is more videos on how smart octopuses or octopi, depending on how you want to do it, how smart they are at figuring out these things. Intelligence is not something that's limited to people. And as I look at what people do, sometimes I'm even more convinced that maybe it is limited. Okay. Are our animal companions aware? Do they really know what they're doing? Are they a gondol protozoan following a genetic code, or do they really have a choice? More importantly, do we have a choice? The age-old question, nature or nurture? Do we act on our inheritance, or are we trained by our culture and upbringing to make certain choices? Or is it a combination of the two? Are we naturally selected? Do we stumble by accident on behavior that will allow us to endure? Or can we actually choose to carry out decisions that will ensure our survivability? If you're somebody who refuses vaccines, evidently not. I wonder, as we lemming-like seem to thoughtlessly follow the ignorant into the rising sea. So we've discussed our animals aware. What about the next step? What about plants? What is the difference between a sunflower as it pivots along the sky following the bright yellow rays and a person journeying to Florida in the winter? The difference between tomatoes and their search for water in the potting plant, or the thirsty kid at the water fountain. Peter Wohlleben, in The Hidden Life of Trees, of the rights of a forest stump, years after it was harvested, was still alive because of the nourishment supplied by its neighbors. Trees who chemically warn others of insect or fungus attack, so they have time to prepare. Trees that cooperate, intentionally, by design. And the stump thing was really interesting. Their feeder roots go to that stump and entangle the roots of the stump and transfer the nutrients that the living trees have gathered into the trunk. It no longer has leaves. It has no way to do photosynthesis, but it can take the nourishment, the sugars that the surrounding trees give it. Is this just some kind of accident of nature? And I don't know. I mean, are we giving trees the idea that they control what they're doing? We know they bend toward the light. We know they can prepare with thicker bark in case of fire. So, all right, let's return to my favorite touchstone, something that I come back to on and on. Separation from farming. Back when the life cycle was everyday evident, the pig, the chicken, the calf that you birthed and raised day by day literally goes from farm to table. I grew up raising 4-H beef calves, and the day before they were shipped off to auction, I would spend the night with my calf at the fairgrounds. I slept in the pen with the calf. That calf was a friend I had raised from when it was born. That's kind of where that's where I found my envy for dairy herding. Us beef farmers, our calves were sold, killed, and put on the table 2 days after we sold them at the fair. The dairy kids I watched, they spent the night at the fairgrounds, and you can see that in Greenville at the Dark County Fair. But their dairy heifers came home with them, had calves, raised their own calves, and lived a good life. But life comes to an end. So 4-H was the connection between the business of farming. You actually got paid when you sold your project at the fair, and the vocation of farming, where your family continued and deepened its attachment to the land. The farther we are removed from an intimate relationship with life and death, the harder it is to relate to reality and make decisions based on facts, not sentiment. The farther we progress into factory farming, where animals are inputs by numbers in the thousands, and caregivers are hourly employees who see their employment as any other factory work. I don't have an answer for this, and I hate to come across as an old curmudgeon, but I cannot escape the realization that living is changing with an ever-increasing complexity and speed. My faith in community says we may yet find an adjustment that saves us all. I pray it is so. Okay. Questions, comments? Yes?
Just a little comment about the ravens. Our daughter, her family, they have ravens out there, and if they put a treat on the railing of their porch, the ravens will come by, and then they bring a present and leave it there.
Ah,
Yeah. Isn't that cool? And then the other thing is the ravens, I had to read about this because that's pretty cool. Ravens will go to other ravens with something, like a stick or a stone or a jewel, and they basically will show the other one and say, look at this. Not for food, not for anything else other than look
Just
at
interest.
this. And they say that for a lot of these psychologists and all that is a mind bender.
yes.
Crazy, huh?
There's some pretty amazing things going on with people and with animals. Some pretty amazing things with fish and the whole animal kingdom, which makes it harder and harder to eat that steak on Sunday. I haven't quite got there yet, but I do see and I think I told you that story about the turkey. We raised 2 turkeys. We ate one for Thanksgiving, but the other one turned out to be a pet, and we could not eat her for Christmas. So we bought the turkey. So some turkey died, but our turkey lived. And that's kind of what life is like. If you see the stories on YouTube or Facebook, there's always stories of people that go to the kill pens and rescue animals, like particularly horses that are destined for slaughter. They'll bring those horses back, feed them, groom them, and they look so happy when they're out in the pasture. You can't do that for every horse. You can't do that for every cow. That's part of the whole living connection, and that's part of what I'm talking about when I say sometimes we lose that connection by not living on the farm. When you're a farm kid, you grow up caring for animals, but you know what the sequence of life is all about. You know that animals are destined to be eaten at the end or to die. And that kind of prepares you. We watch a lot of British television. If you've watched British television funerals, does anybody know what the tradition is at the gravesite at a British funeral? Everybody throws a handful of dirt on the coffin. It is an actual physical act, a sense of finality that you are closing the book on that person's life. You are helping to bury that person, something that when we started out, our ancestors in small groups and tribes, everybody, and when they started burying people, that everybody did help bury the person. That is something that creates that sense of finality, something that they protect kids from now. You know, they don't take them to the funeral home or they don't let them see the body in the casket. Sometimes it's hard to believe that people are gone if you've never actually seen them laid out in the casket. Okay, for our offering, as usual, feel free to put something in, take something out. And if you are at home, feel free to share with us to keep the heat on and the lights on. I think I mentioned that we forgot last Sunday. We were so worried about the mice things, we forgot to unplug the coffee pot. So it burned up because it was on all week. So we have a replacement coffee pot, so that will be on, and there will be actually week-old donuts, but they're day-old and they've been in the freezer, so they taste just like fresh donuts. Your contributions are much appreciated, both of time, trouble, and monetarily. And what are the lyrics? Is it "Let Songs of Hope and Faith," or is it "Faith and Hope"? Are we doing this correctly? That "Songs of Hope and Faith Arise"? Because I was confused when we first started this, and I want to make sure I haven't slipped back into the wrong one. Somebody Kenny's looking it up, so let me know and I'll change it if I'm wrong. Because it is really nice to hear people sing. And I've actually looked into on the traditional hymnals. If you're a Presbyterian or a Lutheran, you can actually go online and get copies. I mean, you can download actually choirs singing your hymns, which I thought about doing, but the Unitarian hymns are a little harder to come across with people singing them. So if anybody has a line on that, let me know. All right. You know, I like to keep track of Yellowstone. This is what it's like in Yellowstone now. It's cold here and it's really cold there. But wouldn't it be nice to be wrapped up in a big buffalo robe? All right. Our closing words: Cooperation for Human Creativity by Denise Hawley. Love our earth. Take action to consume less. Use less energy. Respect water. And be cooperative, collaborative, and create community, like the moss and the mushrooms, like the things that creep and crawl, the creatures that fly through air or water, these four-legged friends who cannot speak for themselves. Our children's lives depend on it, all of our children. Right. Did I do the closing hymn? Did I miss that?
Not yet.
All right, 199. Precious Lord, take my hand. That's from Isaiah 41:13. Interesting choice of hymns. I do not want any of you going home in the near future. We all are going home eventually, but I don't want our precious Lord taking anybody's hand in the near future and taking you home. So smile, stay upright, keep the shiny side up, as they say in Canada on the interstate. All right. Postlude.
This is an old folk tune by Woody Guthrie called So Long It's Been Good to Know You. The words so long.
Is the Spirit moving among us? Our service for First Universalist, New Madison, on this cold, snowy morning. But as it is 2022, they're predicting 50 degrees Tuesday. So,
then it changes.
Yeah, snow Thursday, so who knows how much.
Get ready for Thursday.
Yeah, and they're getting walloped out east. They had an actual standard nor'easter with like 36 or 40 inches of snow and blowing winds. But they're used to it. So enjoy the week. Take care of yourselves. Hope to see you next week.
Tim, put the salt back up there. You got it right.
Is that how it went?
That's right. Okay, I'll stay with that.
Got it.
Sometimes when people are singing, I can't quite hear whether they're singing what I'm saying or they're saying something else. So.